Hello, everybody. So today I'm gonna be using an AI voice because I'm basically being lazy and because it's an evening here and I am pretty tired. So let's call this voice Adam. And Adam, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much to Postdoc Life for inviting me to your channel. Today, we're going to dive into the European Competence Framework for Researchers, an ERA document that's the perfect tool for brainstorming and structuring two key parts of your application. Section 1.3, two-way knowledge transfer, and Section 2.1, career perspectives and employability. I'll be focusing mainly on Section 2.1. This framework lays out 7 core competence areas, or competency dimensions, that researchers should develop to succeed in their careers. Each dimension is broken down into subdimensions, which in turn are detailed into specific, concrete competencies and skills. Moreover, the competencies are organized by difficulty level, from foundational, relatively easy, to expert-level skills. For example, a foundational skill listed in the framework is contributing to drafting research proposals, while an expert-level skill is leading large and prestigious applications of international and interdisciplinary character. So when writing Section 2.1, your vision for who you want to become, it's a good idea to focus on the broader, more strategic competencies found in the advanced and expert columns. For Section 1.3, two-way knowledge transfer, I'd recommend emphasizing competencies in the intermediate to advanced range. You can check out the document in PDF format. I'll link it below. There's also a great interactive tool created by Vladislav Ivanishchev, linked below as well, that lets you pick and choose the skills you're aiming to develop and then generates a summary for you. For example, I selected nearly all the skills, and when I clicked on Report, it generated a detailed summary of those competencies, just like this. You can then copy and paste the report and use it however you like. Now, let me give you a concrete example of how this tool and the specific competencies it outlines can help you when writing your MSCA PF application. Today, I'll focus on Section 2.1, which covers your career perspectives and employability. Before you start writing this section, I recommend filling out a simple table. Since the section asks you to reflect on potential careers both within and beyond academia, start by identifying 2 academic disciplines where you could see yourself building a career. These should be based on the interdisciplinary nature of your project. Then think about 2 career paths outside of academia. These can be quite diverse. It really depends on your personal interests and existing or developing skill sets. Let's say one of my academic career goals is to become an assistant professor in urban policy. Now, this table has 6 different rows. I want you to start by filling in the first row with your own words, focusing on the specific competencies you need to develop to pursue that particular career path. These should be more detailed and concrete. For example, to become a professor in urban policy, one key competency I need to build is experience in leading and managing a large research grant. Next, you can skip row 2 for now. We'll come back to it later, and it will be much easier to complete once we've filled in the broader categories of competencies in rows 3 and 4. So, moving on. In row 3, use your own words to identify the broader categories that your specific competency falls under. For instance, in my example, leading and managing a large grant would fall under project planning and budgeting, and possibly also academic networking and collaboration. Now it's time to bring in the European Competence Framework document. First, we need to identify the broader competency dimensions that correspond to the categories we just defined. In this case, they fall under managing research, manage projects and working with others, develop networks. Once you have those, it becomes much easier to pinpoint the specific competencies listed in the ECF that you can refer to in your application. Remember to focus on those in the advanced and expert categories. For my example, I would choose design the project management and reporting structure for prestigious research projects under project management, and build and lead collaboration partnerships within and outside own institution under networking. Next, row 5 is for the activities you'll undertake in the immediate future, specifically during the fellowship, that will help you progress toward your career goal in urban policy. These should align with the training activities you mentioned in Section 1.3, though try not to repeat them word for word. For example, during the fellowship, I might plan to take an advanced project management workshop offered by a unit within my host institution. Row 6 is for your long-term vision, activities and outcomes that may begin during the fellowship but extend beyond it. In my case, that could be preparing and applying for an ERC starting grant. And just like that, you can fill in the entire table and use the ideas you've generated to help shape your Section 2.1. Now let's take it a step further. You can actually use these insights to brainstorm short-term and long-term activities using a retrieval-augmented generation pipeline. Just to be clear, this isn't a recommendation to rely on AI to write your entire application. Large language models are powerful tools, but they're still no match for a skilled grant writer. And many of your competitors are exactly that: strong, experienced grant writers. That said, this workflow can be incredibly helpful for brainstorming and getting a solid first draft of Section 2.1 off the ground. I'll just briefly show you the code and how you could set this up, but I won't go into the technical details. I've prepared a notebook that uses a retrieval augmented generation pipeline to help brainstorm and draft Section 2.1. First, I install all the necessary packages, including GNI and ChromaDB. If you decide to follow along, don't forget to get a Google API key for Gemini and store it in your secrets, right here. Next, either mount your Google Drive or simply upload the ECF competencies Excel file. We'll use it to search for relevant competencies. Here you can see a list of all the advanced and expert-level competencies from the framework. Then we create a function to generate embeddings from the competency text and store them in a database. This setup makes it easy to search and retrieve the most relevant competencies. Here's an example. I run a query asking, what is the competency closest to leading and coordinating multi-partner grant proposals? And the search returns these two matching options. Then, you just need to set up an augmented generation flow. I created 3 separate prompts for the language model. In the first prompt, I ask it to brainstorm the most common skill or competency that a postdoc might lack when trying to secure a position in a given discipline. In the second prompt, I ask it to suggest 3 activities that could be completed within the 2-year duration of the MSCA Fellowship, and 1 long-term activity the postdoc could pursue afterward to demonstrate mastery of that skill. In the third prompt, I ask the model to suggest an additional skill that hasn't been mentioned in the first 2 competencies, something distinct to ensure diversity in the range of competencies being pursued for this career. Then I define the expected output format and configure the LLM to return responses in JSON. Finally, I structure the RAG pipeline. This setup returns the key target competency, 3 related ECF competencies, the dimensions those competencies belong to, so you can ensure a diverse skill profile, and suggested short-term and long-term activities. The RAG takes 4 input variables: the position, discipline, hosting institution, and the data frame containing the ECF competencies. Of course, you can fully customize the prompts and the pipeline to suit your specific needs. Once you have the output from any of the RAG runs, you can use it to generate a paragraph describing the selected competencies and your envisioned career path for Section 2.1. I start with a simple structure and provide a few examples. The first example is very basic, so the model returns something like this. Then the next prompt builds on that with more varied examples and uses a different model to generate a more nuanced response. If you're interested in replicating this workflow or experimenting with it yourself, you can purchase the notebook on Postdoc Life's Gumroad. Thanks for watching, and I hope she makes me speak in the next video. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.